Welcome to the Future of Payroll and Workforce Management Insights by HR.com, your go-to resource for insights into payroll and workforce management. From navigating compliance and technology trends to exploring the latest in global payroll solutions, we're here to keep you ahead of the curve. Join us as we dive into the forces reshaping payroll and share practical strategies to optimize your workforce management. Let's get started. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Future of Payroll and Workforce Management, a podcast here at HR.com, where I am your host, Brent Skinner. I do many things at HR.com. I lead a Future of Payroll advisory board, lead a couple of other advisory boards, do this podcast. I write for the newsletter, the blog, all sorts of things, but enough about me. Today is about my guest, Eynat Guez, who is CEO of Papaya Global. Welcome, Eynat.
Hi, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for carving out some time in your busy schedule to be on this podcast. And I know we have a really exciting, interesting topic to get into today, and we'll get into that shortly. But first, I like to ask all my guests, there's a lot of passion in this space and in the world of work and human capital management especially. It's you find some passion elsewhere, but it's real. There's a lot of it in this space. And I just like to learn from my guests, what gets you motivated every day to fight the good fight and all this kind of stuff. And maybe what got you into the world of work.
What got me into? Let's start with this. Life itself, as I said, I think that I started my career, I had the opportunity to start my career with a company that did mega projects in Africa at the time. And I was super lucky to get into places in the world that you don't really step in as a tourist, like Angola and Liberia and Guinea, and to realize two things: that there are so many things that are different, but then at the end of the day, people are people, and our operating system is quite similar to many things that we are doing. And to your second question, I think that this is exactly what gets me excited, is to find those links and to assure that we create the infrastructures to enable this, because eventually a global workforce is creating infrastructures, that allow you to work in some places, is creating infrastructures that allow your company to pay you and to employ you. And those links, and obviously, there are also cultural kind of things that needs to work. But this is really what gets me excited, because from the surface level, it seems like super boring things that nobody wants to even hear about, right? You don't want to know how things works in the back end and how you need to solve things like work permit or like tax issues and so on. But this is really what drives the wheel. So for me, this is fascinating.
Yeah, really getting sort of into the nitty gritty and really just making sure things work in the background, because we talk so much about all this sort of halcyon sort of stuff, all these big things, the employee experience and employee engagement, employer brand, and just happiness in the workforce and all of that, right? And that's all well and good. It's a great North Star, but to make it happen, there's a lot of nuts and bolts. There are many nuts and bolts that need to be taken care of. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Now, our topic today is we have sort of a working title, and we'll come up with maybe a catchier title when we put up the landing page for this particular episode. But the gist of it is, improving the worker experience. Papaya personnel plus Banco. Empowering
Yep.
talents and HR leaders. So before, and I have several questions for you around this, but first, maybe you could frame this a little bit help frame this for our viewers. What is Banco? What is this all about? What's going on here?
Banco is our global mobile wallet app that basically allows people to assure that the money goes with them wherever they are in the world. They get it seamlessly. They get it to a mobile app. And from this app, they have the financial freedom to do whatever they want. They can use a credit card that is connected to that. They can even invite their family members or their spouses to add a card. So you can have other people, maybe you want it or maybe you don't want it, to use your money directly from your wallet. And moreover, you can have the financial freedom to live in multiple currencies and to distribute funds to multiple kind of bank accounts. And the most interesting things in Banco is that today's world, many people want to be unbanked, right? I mean, unbanked used to be something that you don't choose. I mean, when banks are refusing to open a bank account, you are actually becoming unbanked. Today, there is a growing population that is unbanked by choice. You
Mhm.
don't necessarily want to deposit your money in the bank because you want this accessible. You want the money to travel with you. You want to assure that you travel and you have multi currencies choice and so on. And this is becoming more and more the norm, definitely on digital and global workforce. Moreover, which is for me the other side of it, as we said before, the infrastructures. When we are looking currently about global workforce and currencies kind of conversion and so on, the numbers are quite crazy. In average, people pay 15 cents on every dollar that they gain outside of their home country in order to get this money home. Okay. So you work very, very hard on another country, but then you pay 15 cents on every dollar just to get this dollar home. And for us, this is really kind of enabling financial freedom, but also bringing more to the individuals because, 15 cents on a dollar, it's outrageous amount that you leave behind. And for us, this is really Banco.
Yeah, yeah, that adds up. Is sort of the sort of the trite little saying, but it's true. Um, in just before and like I said, I have some questions for you, but I just want to just sort of add a little sort of fine point or exclamation point to this is, earlier last year, um, writing for the magazine, talked about what I called the great decoupling. And, and there's, disperse pay disbursement, payroll, pay processing and pay disbursement have very long fallen on, they've been under the aegis of the payroll department. It's for the longest time. And, and the payroll processing piece of it has always made more sense than the pay disbursement piece of it because the money,
Yep.
belongs to the employer literally right until the moment that it changes hands and is dispersed to the
Yep.
employees, right? And yet you're trying to serve those employees as well with sort of from an economic standpoint, from a calculus where really your true stakeholder is the owner of the money. So still, right, which is the employer. So it's really
Yep.
interesting. And now we have a lot of technology and sort of a coalescing of various regulations and sort of a changing the regulatory environment that's enabling these two things to actually become two different practices almost in at employers worldwide. So that's really interesting to me. And so it's exciting to hear about how, more and more companies are sort of able to support and accommodate that, which is really interesting. Let's talk about employee engagement and retention because this goes right into it, right? Because pay is sort of I like to say it's ground zero for the employee experience. There's
Yes.
yeah, and 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 it's kind of a negative connection sometimes, right? When it goes right, nobody thinks about it, right? Pay goes right, but when it goes wrong, then you realize just how essential it is to the employee experience. Um, so employee engagement and retention are priorities for HR leaders, right? But from your perspective, why has worker experience become such a critical lever in achieving both?
Um, I think, and looking on the global side, because I mean, we are all about global, it's always much more complicated because eventually, when you have five people in the same room or 200 people in the same building, you have a lot of options to see them, to interact with them, formal and informal way. And when you have people in five different countries, you wake up in the morning on different hours. Eventually, the level of interaction that you have is minimal by choice and by default. And you need to create level of trust and level of interactions that is also informal, right? And they need to know that you care about them. And eventually you need to create this engagement cross border, which is much more complicated. First, it takes more time. I mean, you really need to spend more time and to find a way of doing it. But I think also assuring that they understand that the borders that we have between, those employees to their employers are not defining, are not becoming disadvantage is super important. And we spoke about things as eventually kind of payment disbursement and assuring that they get the same things. It goes to benefits because normally it's much easier to understand and define benefits in your home kind of country. But to forget about allowing those benefits globally and giving you money is not giving you benefit, right? If I'm going to hand over a meal card for you or hand over $100 for you, it's not the same value. It's not the same thing. So really creating those infrastructures that allows very good communication that takes in consideration that there are some obstacles. I mean, that will be there, but also to look on the things on a very, very local kind of level and assure that you can really bridge them the best way possible. Not everything is possible, but the best way possible.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I agree. I mean, so this kind of segues into because we're also talking about HR leaders here. We can't forget about them. They have a worker experience as well, right?
Yep.
And how are we how are we empowering them? What does that really mean in today's global distributed workforce environment?
How do we empower them? First, I think that we need to empower them by empowering them by really kind of putting them on the center of the attention and assuring that people understand that they have a very critical role. And second thing, which is not less important, we I'm a very big advocate of technology. I'm a very big advocate of AI, but I'm also a very big advocate of face-to-face meetings and assuring that people meet each other. Because as I started in the beginning, I started my career on countries that I've never been before. And what I realize is that people are people. So there is no, and I think this is a great thing, and I hope that it won't change in the future. There is no replacement for those personal interaction. And I think that even kind of putting those things as a tradition in the calendars and assuring that quarterly, I mean, biannually, annually meeting, you have on ground with people. They know that eventually they will have this time to meet people, to kind of to interact with them on a different, informal way, really makes a difference. And I think
Mm.
that you just need to assure that this is high on the priorities and part of the budget, because otherwise it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you that now this kind of gets back to what you were mentioning in terms of sort of what got you interested in the world of work in the first place. The nuts and bolts of things behind, in the background, this sort of things. Many HR platforms, they focus heavily on automation and compliance, right? And you being sort of Papaya Global being sort of, its origins being originally in an employer of record, but, obviously you've expanded significantly since then. And I love what you guys are doing. I've been following this. Um, how do you
Thank you.
balance those needs for automation and compliance? Yeah. How do you balance those needs though, while still keeping the human experience at the center? Or, is that really a binary one or the other, or is that the wrong way to ask the question? Do they actually go hand in hand?
Yeah, it's not binary at all. I mean, from my perspective, it's really kind of giving them the same weight. And if we're looking on ourselves, we are all much more digitalized person that we used to be like 10 or 20 years ago. But you still balance it, right? I mean, the interesting thing is that we all spend much more time using our kind of mobile phone. But from the other hand, we all spend much more time doing video calls, right? I mean, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we would do way less video calls. It was kind of weird to speak with people over video, right? And all of a sudden, it's actually become something that you want to create. You want to see the interaction. You want to see the other side. And I think it's the same when we build technology. It's about how do we remove the friction? How do we take and we automate everything that you don't really want to do? Like you don't want to fill papers. You don't want to submit papers. You don't want to chase things. You want to have the confidence that the paperwork around the cycle and the payroll and the whole experience has been done. But from the other hand, you want to have access to the things that are important for you. And it can be pay slips, it can be just immediate support that you need currently because you have a benefit question or you need kind of immediate support on a personal level of something that happened. And I think when we just started, one of our first clients told us, you know what I like about you guys is that you have these 24 kind of 7 service availability, but you know also how to give me the answers. And she gave me an example that her previous provider, they used to run from the US, but they gave her a global kind of service. So she said, I called them once and I had an employee in Italy that was involved in a car accident. And I told them, what do I need to do? And they told her, oh, let us kind of get back to you in 2 or 3 days time and tell you what you should do. And she said, it's not helpful. I have somebody currently in the other side of the globe that needs my help. I need answers now. And I think this is where we were really looking on everything in how do we create a very personal interactions? How do we eventually cover country per country? And we don't forget that eventually when something is becoming immediate in our industry, it's the here and now really matters because the majority of the time we need to be as slick and as kind of transparent as possible. You don't really care about your payslip unless you think that that something there is not correct, or unless you need it currently in order to present it to the bank, or unless you need something that is very, very urgent for you to solve now.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of designing, so I think we've covered this, but if you have any fine points to sort of add to this, you often speak about designing HR technology for both sides of the equation, right? And can you share how maybe a little bit more about how Papaya supports HR teams while also improving sort of day-to-day experience for workers themselves?
Yeah. So the way that we are looking on it is that basically our support, and we called it also support 360, covers all sides of the equation. So if you are a worker, you can approach us by your Papaya Personnel, which is our personal mobile app where you can get all of your information, you can see all of the deductions, you can get information about everything that happened. Now with Banco, you can also see kind of your funds immediately and on them. But you can also ask questions about your payslip and about deductions and about what happened here. Why did it change? Did I got the expenses reimbursement? So the ability to assure that you get information quickly as possible to address your pain as an individual, and you don't need to chase. I think the one thing that we all hate is to chase information that we want to get here and now. And just to make it very, very accessible. In the majority of the time, we can answer on the spot, and sometimes it's AI that really kind of pull the answers for you. Sometimes it's human kind of support. But to assure that you get this noise that currently you have in your head that needs an answer, cleared, and that's it. And I think just looking on this and assuring that we clear all of those answers and we clear all of the information and we provide access to them, um, this what makes a difference. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of attention, uh, but it really makes a difference in the experience.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It does. You're singing my song here. This is a lot of stuff that that's been kind of swirling about in the in sort of the discussion, the sort of meta discussion in this space for a long time. And it's so gratifying to kind of hear a leader in this space really, you know, making it happen and actually sort of connecting the dots and having that technology and sort of that actually enables or facilitates this kind of stuff. In the couple minutes that we have left, and I'm sorry to rush this one, but what role do because this is actually kind of sort of the culmination or sort of the aha moment, I think, the epiphany here, right? So what role do transparency and financial flexibility play in engagement and trust, especially for global and contingent workers?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Not sure that I understood the question.
Oh, no, that's okay. So we talk about transparency and financial flexibility for that. We've been
Yeah.
talking about that for a long time for workers, right? How do those play? What kind of role do those play in when it comes to engagement and trust, especially for global and contingent workers?
Yeah. I think that the main thing that it plays is just assuring that we all understand the baseline. I've been in this industry for 20 years now, and I think that people tend to forget that global labor laws and employment is almost like speaking to different kind of country languages. Okay, I mean with each other. And when I tell you, for example, hey, I want to give you kind of a job offer. I mean, in the U.S., you're gonna gain $1,000 per month, and I'm gonna give the same offer in Italy and in China. They all hear different things. They all expect to have different things attached to that and tied to that. Now, if I don't understand the landscape and I'm just looking on this from my perspective, from my budget perspective, and I think that $1,000 actually equal $1,000, maybe I have just medical insurance attached to that. I mean, this is my word. When you hear this in China, you expect to have meal kind of benefits, you expect to have extended pension, you expect to have kind of, health insurance, you expect to have 13 salaries in some countries. And all of a sudden, when you are coming back and expecting to see this, and I don't know what you are talking about, or I mean, this is not something that I budget and I'm trying to change the numbers to reduce it in order to accommodate everything, this is where trust breaks, right? So the one thing that you need to assure is that you understand the whole pictures. I think that whenever you have numbers on the table, whenever you have a gross amount number that you present to someone, hourly rate, monthly rate, and so on, this needs to be adjusted to their localized kind of country and to their kind of norm. I cannot tell you, hey, you're going to gain $100 per hour, and then tell you, okay, if you have those kind of benefits, I'm actually going to embed them in, bake them in the rate. So it's actually not going to be $100 per hour. It's going to be 90 or 85 because in your head, now I kind of discounted the offer. And this is where we are eventually kind of breaking trust. Rather, if I would come first place and said, hey, you're going to gain $85 per hour, but I will give you all obviously kind of the best benefits in the country, um, you'll have much more trust because you'll understand that I know what I'm talking about. And this is the one thing that I always advise HR and finance people. Before you give anyone an offer, assure that you understand the language, the conversation that he expects to have with you. Because if you don't understand this and you're going to go back afterwards and you're going to decrease some component, that's already breaking the trust.
Yeah, yeah, that's really wise insights there, and, I think you make some great points. Uh, we are at the end of the podcast. Eynat Guez, CEO of Papaya Global, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks for tuning in to the Future of Workforce Management and Payroll Insights by HR.com. We hope today's episode brought you valuable insights and fresh perspectives on the future of payroll and workforce management. Be sure to check out more episodes and explore resources at HR.com/podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, keep innovating and making a difference in the world of payroll and workforce management.